I'm Stephen Slaughter, and I'm the Landslide Response Coordinator for the USGS. Previously, I worked at the Washington State Geological Survey, where I managed the landslides program and led landslide emergency response. For this conversation, I'll draw from 5 landslide emergencies under the Incident Command System, where complexity ranged from the most complex at the 2014 Oso landslide, with hundreds of first responders and several geologists, to the least complex, with me advising the police chief of a tiny town on the threat of landslides to a neighborhood. Our role is to provide technical information for decision makers. This seems like an obvious statement, but based on my experience, most officials don't know who the experts are. So we may arrive unannounced to an incident or at the request of other government officials, and it's up to us to help the incident management team understand our role and how we can assist. We need to articulate that our job is to help them understand the hazard so they can make informed decisions to protect public safety and the safety of first responders. Scientists are a crucial component to the decision-making process, and many officials may not be aware of that. So when you first walk into the room and introduce yourself, tell them what you do and that you are there to support them. During a response, officials are usually very busy, so their time is limited, especially during the first few days. When we do have their time, here are some points to assist with message delivery. Distill. It's often difficult to distill a technical message to a non-scientist, and even more difficult if your audience is under stress and pulled in multiple directions. So help them understand and use simple, plain language. Too often, experts in any field assume people understand some of their language, but I just say that if a word is found in a scientific textbook, then you are likely talking over your audience. So distill as much as possible, and if you must use scientific vocabulary, define it in the most basic terms. Concise. This is the foundation of any great elevator pitch. Keep your message simple, but have extra material if time allows. And if you're told you have 10 minutes, also plan for 5. At a landslide, I was asked to brief a congressperson before a press conference, and I was initially told I had 10 minutes. And then at last minute, I was told I had 5. However, when I met the congressperson in person, we immediately recognized each other from the hallways back when he was a state employee. We ended up having a very long conversation, and he wanted all the geologic background. It was a geologist's dream. All the major media networks were standing by, and it was me that had to end the conversation, as I sensed the growing impatience of the media circle around us. Consistent. When meeting with officials, I prepare a script of talking points to ensure I cover the relevant topics. When preparing for the next meeting, the message may change, but I build on those same notes in previous day, using the same language, descriptions, and vocabulary. To sum up, master the elevator pitch of jargon-free hazards communication with a consistent and concise message. Incident manager teams have a lot of meetings, and a barrier for scientists is knowing which meeting our expertise is necessary. So you may need to figure it out, because it's not always obvious. For instance, officials may plan scenarios and need a scientist at the table to help them understand what scenario is most likely to occur and what is a credible worst-case scenario. The results of planning without an expert present can be, from experience, hilariously awful. As an aside, during an initial response, it's always better to bring more scientists than you think you need. I never brought enough, and from my experience, I believe 4 is a good first start. 1 is embedded with the incident management team to communicate and plan, attend staff meetings, and answer questions. 2 are in the field to assess the hazard. I should note that safety is paramount to an incident management team, so the geologist should plan on working together and plan on wearing all your PPEs, such as hard hats, safety glasses, field vests, gloves, etc. The 4th is a public information officer, there to deal with media inquiries and staff the information office. We need to ensure we make our intent to the decision makers immediately clear. As I stated earlier, the first message you bring to officials is that you are there to help them, but more importantly, you are not collecting data for research. There is no room for data collection for research during an emergency response. Your role is to support the incident and provide information for decision making. That being said, data collection to aid decision making for the response is probably fine, and every incident and every response is different, so you need to weigh the situation yourself. Related to this is to be wary of academics and researchers with oversold promises of collecting data to help with the response. I've had dozens of requests during emergency responses, and twice we've allowed researchers to access a landslide during an emergency, and I didn't ask the right questions to vet their products. At the Oso landslide, an academic UAV team claimed they had a camera that could identify bodies buried in sediment. So after a discussion, we took time to grant them airspace to fly their UAV, and we grounded search and rescue helicopters for 90 minutes. They completed their mission, and after a couple of days, no data was shared as promised. Their emailed reply, the data turnaround is usually fast, they didn't have any students to process the data. We never received any data from them. A possible solution to including researchers who would like to contribute to emergency response is to build relationships before the emergency, to understand who can provide information in a timely manner, and help the academics understand that they are contributing to the response and not collecting data for research. Data comes after the incident management team has left. Another barrier is that officials want numbers, and we typically can't provide that level of detail or confidence during emergency response. We typically use qualitative terms such as likelihood and potential. We're basing these conservative calls on maybe 2 data points and professional experience. Not exactly confidence-inspiring for any of us when dealing with public safety, and frustrating for officials that want more information to make decisions. Fortunately, we can provide the officials other scientific information they would not otherwise have. Unfortunately, they will still ask for numbers that we typically cannot provide during an emergency response. So prepare to explain to officials why we can't give them a number, and prepare to have this discussion often. A map is worth 1,000 words. Unfortunately, it's a capacity issue for most of us because many programs are understaffed and making a map for public consumption is difficult. But maps and graphics can help relay a complex message, and incident management teams appreciate and understand these products. For instance, this map ended up being crucial because the arrows show the direction of landslide movement and help people visualize where the landslide was going. The popular belief was the landslide was moving to the left or west and towards a highway. However, we had plenty of data that showed the movement was to the south and into a rock quarry. During the initial few days, we stated the landslide direction during press conferences and meetings, but it was the production of this map that made people visibly relax and exclaim, "Oh, it really is heading towards the quarry." So maps and other visual aids are great communication tools that decision makers typically understand and actually want. Some concluding remarks. Decision makers don't know what they don't know. Help them understand the hazard and your role in the response, which is safety of the public and first responders, including helping officials make informed decisions. Concise and consistent messages. Practice the jargon-free elevator pitch and use plain English. And if the word can be found in a scientific textbook, it's probably too technical for your audience. Keep it simple. Build relationships with researchers and academics before the response. There is no place of research during emergency response. But if there are researchers that can provide useful information or have interest in contributing to response, build those relationships before the emergency. Understand the potential issues with collecting data. I know I said no data collection for research during a response, but every response is different and every team is different, so there is flexibility. However, I recommend starting with no data collection for research, and then, as you understand the situation and the officials better, you can reconsider data collection for research.